He fought for the country for 20 years. But at his own son's graduation, they told him to leave. What happened next silenced the entire base. The air was warm, heavy with pride and anticipation. Families gathered under a large white tent, rows of neatly arranged chairs facing a raised stage where young men and women would soon receive their Navy stripes. Flags fluttered in the light breeze, and somewhere in the crowd, a brass band played soft military tunes. Among the crowd sat a man, broad-shouldered, upright, dressed in a sharp Marine Corps dress uniform. His dark skin glistened slightly under the sun, and his posture was so straight it looked like he was carved from stone. His name was Sergeant Marcus Carter, and he had every reason to be proud that day. After 20 years of service, after surviving war zones, losing friends, missing holidays, and nursing wounds both visible and hidden, this day wasn't about him. It was about his son. Jason Carter, now fully grown, had followed in his footsteps, not into the Marines, but into the Navy. And today, he was graduating. Marcus had arrived early, finding a seat near the front. He nodded respectfully to people as he passed, but not many nodded back. Some shifted slightly away. Others avoided his eyes. He noticed, but he said nothing. After 2 decades in uniform, Marcus was used to silent judgment. He'd seen it in restaurants, airports, even in hospitals where he bled for the same flag others casually disrespected him under. But today, he told himself, none of that mattered. He was here for Jason. He was going to watch his boy step up in full uniform, receive his honor, and make his father proud. Then it happened. 2 uniformed guards approached, one on either side. Stone-faced, one leaned down and spoke in a low, commanding voice. "Sir, you need to leave." The words hit Marcus like a cold slap. He blinked, confused. "Excuse me? You're not authorized to sit here," the other said. "This area is reserved for—" "I'm his father," Marcus said calmly, his voice steady. "My name is Sergeant Marcus Carter." But they didn't back down. All around them, heads began to turn. Conversations hushed. The band faded out. Jason, standing only a few feet away on the side of the stage, locked eyes with his father. His face went pale. The first guard reached out to grab Marcus by the arm. That's when everything changed. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just looked the guard in the eye and said, quietly but firmly, "Touch me, and you'll regret it." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The guard froze. Then, from the very back of the seating area, 4 men stood. Not loudly, not dramatically, but their presence was like thunder. These weren't just spectators. They were Navy SEALs, elite, battle-hardened warriors. You could tell by their build, the scars on their hands, the intensity in their eyes. They wore civilian clothes, but nothing about them was soft. One of them stepped forward. His voice was calm, but carried the kind of authority you don't question. "You might want to step back." The guards hesitated. Another SEAL joined the first, then the third, then the fourth. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They simply stood there like pillars, blocking the path between the guards and Marcus. The tallest of them spoke. "Sergeant Carter has more combat hours than this entire room combined. You really want to do this?" Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Jason stepped down from his group, his voice trembling, but loud enough to be heard across the tent. "He's my father." That changed something. Not just in the guards, but in the entire crowd. Whispers started, then murmurs, then stares. How could they? Why would anyone try to remove a father from his son's graduation? That's when the final figure appeared. A tall man in a commander's uniform came striding down the center aisle. His boots hit the floor like drumbeats, his face dark with fury. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice sharp and direct. The guards snapped to attention. The SEALs didn't move. The commander walked straight up to Marcus and extended his hand. "Sergeant Carter, my deepest apologies. Your son's ceremony will not begin without you." A flicker of respect, a crack in the tension. But Marcus didn't shake the commander's hand, because something inside him had already been wounded. He had fought for this country, bled for it, buried friends for it. And yet, on this day, in this place of supposed honor, he was treated like a stranger, like a threat. He looked at Jason, and Jason looked back. They both saw the same thing in each other's eyes. Pain. The pain of being questioned. Told they didn't belong. Not because of what they did, but because of how they looked. The crowd sat frozen in that moment, waiting to see what would happen next. But no one, not the guards, not even the commander, could have predicted what Jason would do. A thick silence hung in the air. Sergeant Marcus Carter stood still, refusing the commander's hand. His son, Jason, remained just a few feet away. Eyes locked on his father, chest rising and falling with every heavy breath. The tent was full, but it felt like there were only two people in the world at that moment. A father who had given everything, and a son who was watching that sacrifice be questioned. Jason's hands trembled at his sides. Then he moved. He walked up to his father, not in fear, not in confusion, but with purpose, with something rising in his heart that could no longer be held back. And then, in front of everyone, in front of the guards, the SEALs, the commander, the other families, Jason stood tall and saluted his father. Not the stage, not the flag, not the officers, but his father, the man who raised him, the man who taught him honor, the man who missed birthdays, endured scars, and swallowed insults just to give his son a chance to wear that uniform with pride. The moment Jason's hand rose to his brow, the tent went silent. Even the birds outside seemed to pause. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. His hands, scarred from years of war, slowly lifted as he returned the salute. For a brief second, time stood still. That simple gesture, so full of meaning, so heavy with unspoken emotion, hit harder than any speech ever could. Tears welled up in the eyes of people who didn't even know them. The SEALs stood straighter, as if reminded of something sacred. Even the base commander lowered his hand, understanding the message without a single word being said. Because this wasn't about protocol. This wasn't about who signed what paper or wore which badge. This was about respect. And in that moment, the room realized something. They hadn't just seen a proud Marine being humiliated. They'd seen a system fail him. A country, for a moment, forget what it stood for. But Jason reminded them. He reminded them that honor isn't about the color of your skin. It's about the weight of your sacrifice. It's about standing tall, even when the world tries to push you down. When the ceremony finally began, Marcus was not asked to move again. He was given a chair front and center, not as a favor, but as a right. The SEALs didn't return to their seats. They stood behind him like a silent guard of honor, making sure that everyone in the room remembered exactly who Marcus Carter was. The guards? Nowhere in sight. And when Jason's name was called, when he marched up the steps to receive his Navy diploma, when the crowd clapped and the band played, he didn't shake the commander's hand first. He walked over to his father and hugged him. There was no applause at that moment, just quiet, still hearts taking in the depth of what they had witnessed. By the end of the day, the entire base was talking. They weren't talking about medals or promotions. They were talking about a father and a son, about loyalty, about what it really means to serve, not just your country, but your family, your values, your truth. Some battles are fought with bullets, some with bombs, but the hardest ones? They're fought silently, in rooms full of people who doubt you, and won by standing tall when others want you to shrink. That day, Sergeant Marcus Carter reminded the world, "You can question a man's presence, but never question a Marine's honor." And Jason? He proved something else. That being a soldier isn't about stripes or salutes. It's about knowing who to stand up for and when to do it. If this story moved you, hit that like button and drop a respect in the comments. Because no one, and I mean no one, messes with a Marine's family. Not on their watch.